I really don't know what to say. I don't have the words to really tell you all just how honored I feel to stand here. I'm especially blessed by the presence of all of our veterans who are here. You are special to me and to our school and to our nation. I just wouldn't know what to say to you, but I just salute you. I'm also incredibly honored to introduce you to my dad, Eddie Lee Staten. I wish everybody would have had a chance to know him. My dad originally signed up for the Army, but while he was in the process of doing that, he switched over to the Army Air Corps, which is now Air Force, and he had an opportunity to actually work in aviation, but because of his love for trucks, he decided he wanted to be in transportation. So he signed up really young. He worked really hard to pull himself through the ranks. When I was a very, very small child, I was always in awe of him because I just thought he was so strong and so handsome and so caring and so fierce. I loved being a military brat. That's what people always called us. We weren't really brats. We were just kids who had a lot of manners and discipline. We loved our country. We moved around a lot. For me, that was perfect because for my personality, it was always good to meet new people and to learn about different cultures. We lived in several places in America, and I remember when I was about 6 or 7, I remember one time being in the kitchen and my dad sat me down and he showed me a map of the United States, and he said, I want you to put your hand on the map and tell me where you want to go to college. And of course, I didn't even know what college was, but I said, okay, Daddy, and I would just put my hand all over the map because I wasn't sure. But that was his way of instilling in me from a very, very young age that college is something to look forward to. We're going to map it out. We're going to plan it out. So that was evident. My parents knew each other when they were children. They actually grew up together in the deep piney woods of Mississippi. Their families were very close then, and they still are today. My mother was 16 when she married my dad. He was 21. He often joked about robbing the cradle, but I guess back in 1950, somewhere around there, that was okay. But throughout our formative years, my siblings and I always heard about having a life serving others. My parents taught us that constantly. He always, in his providing for us, it always included talks. And not just regular talks. Sometimes they were talks where he would joke, or sometimes they would be serious, or sometimes just a prayer. As our family grew with the addition of spouses and grandchildren, my father made one request for us. They lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, and his request was that on the 4th of July each year, we would all come home for a visit. All kids, all grandkids, everybody. Not Christmas, not Thanksgiving, but the 4th of July. Because it was more important to him that we remember our country, remember the sacrifice of others, and that we celebrate that. So that's what we did. So you're looking at a photo of all of us together in the backyard, same backyard where they've always been since he retired, with our spouses. His patriotism was infectious, and pretty soon these family gatherings of just the Staten clan, we added so many more people. I think we ended up with maybe 60 people that used to come regularly, and a lot of them have passed away now, so it's kind of down to 40. My dad's uniform was really precious to him. I remember watching him care for that. He wore it with so much pride. Being in the service gave him a sense of satisfaction and knowing that he was doing something to help our nation. I remember him telling me that even during the time of the Civil Rights Movement, when things were not so good as far as segregation and treatment of black people in America, but I remember him telling me how loved and respected he felt by his commanders and his fellow airmen. So he felt a sense of comfort there. My daddy served 2 years of tour of duty in Vietnam. His first tour started when I was in 8th grade, and I remember that I felt like, okay, this is a part of it. This was the first big war, and I was ready for it. I was prayed up for it. I wrote letters every day. I sent them to him. But then when he was there, about halfway through that particular tour, he was riding in a convoy. There were 3 trucks, and he was in the first truck because he was the lead driver. And as they drove, his truck axle broke. His truck had to stop, he and his guys, and they had to wait another day for another axle to be brought. So the other trucks went on to their destination. When my father and his comrades arrived at the destination after they repaired their truck, they found that the other members had been massacred, the ones who had gone ahead. The Lord had spared him, and we were grateful. But when my father came home from that tour, there were mixed feelings by people in our nation about those who served in the Vietnam War. Protesters were everywhere. People were yelling and even spit on our soldiers and airmen because of their service. People even left our country. And you young people, it was like, to me, it was like they were traitors. So when he was sent for his second tour, when I was in 10th grade, this time I was a little bit resentful. After all, my father had already gone once and escaped death. So in my mind, I was thinking, okay, now the service is pushing me because I really want my dad to stay here. I thought that maybe some of the defectors should go. Maybe they should send their kids, I don't know. I heard my mother cry at night a lot. I saw her on her knees as I would peek through the door in her bedroom. And somehow, even though I had those mixed feelings on that second tour, I had to pull myself together and get strong because I was the oldest of four, and I had to help my mother to keep her sanity. During that tour, it was almost over, and I remember getting the letter from my dad saying, "It won't be long now, daughter, it won't be long." So I was so excited. But just weeks before he was supposed to deploy and come back to the States, they were clearing out a temporary base that they had set up. And they had pretty much had it finished, so all the guys were being trucked away to the place where they were going to fly out. My father was not allowed to leave because the commander kept asking him, Staten, I need you to stay back, I need you to do this. And my dad was like, well, everybody's leaving except me. Eventually, though, he went to his commander and he said, when am I going to get on the bus? He said, no, I need you here because you're the best worker. So he stayed there, and then finally the commander let him go. And my dad learned the next day that mortar hit that temporary base, and that commander and all the rest that were there died. Twice the Lord spared my dad's life. He continued in the service for 21 years, and then he went on to hold a civil service position with the Naval Weapons Center in Concord, California. So after he retired from that, one of the things he got to do was to go to the casino. That was his favorite. Every Wednesday, all military personnel get $25 extra slot money to spend. And boy, did my dad get his money every Wednesday. I even had an opportunity to go with him there a couple of times, and he knows all the waitresses, he knows the guy that parks the car, he and my mom. So he would go, and that would be his thing until his death. He loved to watch baseball games. The Dodgers was his favorite team. And on his CD table, you would see country and blues. In February of this year, we learned that my dad had terminal brain cancer. When he was diagnosed and he was in the hospital, he tells us that night that he cried all night and he prayed to God. This was the time that he said he began to thank the Lord for his life and everything that he had done. So when I rushed to the Bay Area along with my family, I was able to spend some time with him. So I went to see him in the hospital. I also talked to his oncologist. We sat in the waiting room and we had a chat. So as my dad sat in his wheelchair and he's in the waiting room, I noticed he pulled out his phone. My father has a Neanderthal flip phone. And he started just scrolling on it, I said, Daddy, what are you doing? You don't have a smartphone. He said, I know, but everybody else does, and I just want to look like them. So he started to pretend. So now you know where I get my sense of humor. We even took a selfie together. This was his first selfie, and he asked me to put it on the internet so that everybody could see it. So I did. One of the things he could do, he said, is I could sit and moan and cry, or I could live for the best that I can, for the rest of my days. So that's what he chose to do. But he did ask the Lord for one thing, and that was that he would have one more 4th of July. And there was a reason for that. Because each year, we had a poker tournament during our 4th of July visits. And my dad had lost the year before to my grandson, who was a senior in high school. So he needed to make a comeback. He could not leave this world without winning. And obviously by the picture, you can see that it worked out just fine. I did not even know that my father played poker while he was in Vietnam. In fact, he played it so well that he was winning lots of money. but he could not send money orders to my mother because there was a limit. So strange men were sending $100 money orders to my mother often. And this is how we were able to have musical instruments, and we were able to go to camp and all the things that we needed to do. They became closer, he and my mom, as this diagnosis came. They grew closer and closer, and they relied on each other so much, just like they've been doing for the past 64 years. I thought it was so cute because as I saw them walking into the house, I said, wait, I want to take your picture. And I remember him turning around and saying to me, you always taking pictures. I said, yeah, Daddy, because I want to remember everything. So that's why I took the picture of my parents walking in. I think it's a symbol of what their marriage and their love was. Exactly 3 months ago today, we started this school year. And when the campus was quieting down and it was time for me to go, I was pooped because it was the first day of school. So I headed to the gas station to fill up the car because I have a 35-minute commute home. So I got on the 202 and I started looking at the sky, and there were these very, very huge clouds with a strange formation of 3 of them. There were 2 big clouds on the bottom and 1 in the middle. And the clouds were just, it seemed like they were in my face, not in the sky, but in my face. And suddenly I started thinking about and wondering, I wonder how far heaven is, and I wonder how long it takes a person to go from here to get to heaven. The clouds were just there, constantly, and I kept thinking of heaven, When I got home, fortunately, my husband had dinner ready, because I was hungry. And after dinner, my mom called and told me that my daddy had passed away. My father had collapsed in the kitchen, sitting at the kitchen table with a friend while he was talking and laughing, something that he's done all his life and something he did so well. The emergency personnel came to get him, and they took him to the hospital, and they did adhere to his request of do not resuscitate. My father chose not to go through that, and then when the Lord allowed this process to start, to just let him go. He was ready because he had lived his life, and he had done everything that he felt he needed to do here. My sons and their 2 cousins organized a beautiful celebration of life service, and the church had a reception for us that was warm and respectful. So on the day when we were going to have his military burial, we knew what to anticipate. My father had talked about this all our lives. We arrived at the cemetery, and there was the honor guard. He and his honor guard were waiting for us as I drove through. I cried out loud at the sight of them because this was the part my dad really wanted, his honor at his death. I finally pulled myself together after my granddaughters gave me a little bit of encouragement, and as I approached the pavilion where we to sit, I walked really tall and proud because I remembered how happy he had always been in his service, and I remember how much that flag meant to him. Anticipating these minutes of respect and honor was huge with him, so I was ready. And when my dad's coffin was carried out of that hearse and placed on the stand, my heart sank and it rose all at the same time. So I placed my hand over my heart as I looked at the American flag that covered his coffin, and I shed quiet tears that came from the depth of my soul. This was what he fought for, and this is what he wanted. As the guards folded the flag of our nation, my grief intensified, and that of my family members. The flag of the United States was a symbol that he risked his life for and he loved so much. So on that day, on behalf of the President of the United States Air Force, and a grateful nation, Eddie Lee Staten was honored. The 9-gun salute blasted loudly enough to be heard for miles, but it was beautiful. Taps was played to finalize the service. I knew the song from camp, so I sang along. Daddy was laid to rest next to many of his comrades' graves in the National Cemetery in Sacramento Valley. Our family created a video collage of my dad's life, and it includes a song that my younger brother wrote called Mississippi Boy. He wrote that song and he recorded it, and that video is on YouTube under his name, Eddie Lee Staten. Some of you might say that was a great way to honor the life of your dad, and it was, putting that video out there. However, to me, the best way to honor him and the many others that have walked in his path of service is to be like them. Not all of us can enlist as they did or those that are currently serving, but we certainly can learn from them and we can follow their examples. We can listen to them. We can hear their stories. We can pray for them every day. We can support them when they need encouragement or companionship. We can volunteer our time and our talent whenever it's needed. Whenever in your lifetime, young and old, if you have an opportunity to help someone or to display an act of bravery or to exhibit patience in a situation, do it. My dad and millions of other military personnel honor us with their acts and their deeds and their dedication to protect our freedom and our lives. We should honor them every day with prayers and service to them in any way that we can. Thank you. God bless.